All right, recording has started. And just so everybody knows, we're going to dive into presentation mode. I'll pull up the slide deck and talk. But first of all, thanks. Happy New Year, everybody. It's glad you could all join us, especially our digital equity team is here in full force today. So welcome. Madam Co-Chair, thanks so much for everything you do and all your work. So glad you're with us today. And we're going to dive in today and I'm going to get our slide deck going. And then got a lot of slides to show off. We can kind of step this out. Mike, just quick check-in. Can you see things okay?
Confirm. Yep.
Awesome. Okay, let's dive in. Broadband Advisory Council meeting for kicking off calendar year 2023. This is a super exciting time. Welcome, Brad, to join us. The first thing I want to do is just go around and make some notes of attendees. So we'll just do a quick roll call, identifying folks. So Emily, well, actually, let's just identify everybody. So we have Mike Sheely from South Carolina Department of Administration, Rick for the Digital Equity Team, Sarah Pincelli, Department of Administration, Tom Rizakis, special guest from Ernst & Young. Thanks for joining us. Brad Wright from the Cable Television. What's the
SCTC, South Carolina Telephone.
I always get that messed up.
We'll take you. You're the cable. That's the cable television.
Anna Berger from South Carolina Association of Counties. Ben Brizale representing the Cable Association. Myself, Jim Stritzinger, Director of the Broadband Office. And also logged in remotely, I see Madeline McGee from Together SC. Thanks, Madeline, for joining. You can hear us. And
Good to be here. Sorry.
Hey, that's okay. And then Mike Hirschberger, Deputy Director of the Broadband Office. I don't think there's anybody else out there that I'm seeing right now, but as other participants come in, broadly, there's a lot to talk about today, but let me just go through the agenda with some broad strokes of what we're going to cover. We're going to do an update on the broadband office. So that's really infrastructure update on where we're at in our game plan, both for calendar year 2022, looking ahead to 2023. We have our digital equity office is muscling up now and getting in the game. So a presentation from the digital equity office and how they see the lay of the land. Also, we have a special guest coming in from Microsoft. Right around the 11 o'clock hour, we're going to switch gears and Microsoft is going to demonstrate for all of us their digital equity dashboard, which is a really neat thing. So we'll talk about other business as it may, as you guys think of some things. And then our next meeting will be on Tuesday, April 11th. And I know we will be hell on wheels with a variety of topics in that time window. So it's going to be busy time. But again, thank you all for joining. And Cedric Kidd, I see Cedric as well. And I think that did our roll call for now. We'll pay attention. Emily, if you could please just pay attention to our roll call as people jump on. So thank you so much. Okay. Oops. We're going to dive in, focus on the money, because this is what we're working with right now. This is American Rescue Plan Act money and ARPA, as we've all heard that lingo. And there's really two separate buckets. I want to make sure everybody's familiar with this. We have State and Local Fiscal Recovery Fund, SLFRF, as we all refer to it. There's also a special bucket for the broadband world. It's called the Capital Projects Fund. Two separate. And Capital Projects Fund, not as many people are familiar with that because it's for broadband only, but state and local fiscal recovery funds were available not only at the state level, but also county and municipalities got their own source of that funding. But for purposes of the broadband office, we had a total available of $400 million. So on May 13th, 2022, last May, the General Assembly allocated $400 million, and that's how the money works out. It's all of the Capital Projects Fund money plus almost $215 million of state fiscal recovery fund. So we'll talk about those. We're going to focus first on the SLFRF side, tell you how we're working our way through deploying that money. Now, both of these, it's important to note that we have to commit all of these funds by December 31st, 2024. So that's not an easy task to get this money committed. And then once the money's committed, we have a full additional 2 years for construction to complete. So that is the challenge. Broadly, our approach to, and this is actually, the more we get in, this approach is working well, is to, from an infrastructure perspective, is to map the state roughly every 6 months and then make an investment round. So we map and we invest and we map and we invest. That creates a rapid iteration, which is working very well. It allows our ISPs to manage their projects, not only from a cash flow perspective, but from an engineering perspective, and to keep track. The other thing is, from a state perspective, we can eliminate wasting money. We can make sure that the dollars are going to the right spots, because not only are there projects that we're funding, but there's organic growth that is always happening. So by paying attention to the organic growth and the other federal program investments, we can make sure that we're not wasting state money along the way. So, but I think you all have seen this, kind of this approach of getting a tranche out the door and then mapping the state. And so far, so good. We have been doing that. Calendar year 2022, slide this little video out of the way so we can see the slides in the room. So we've got calendar year 2022 looked something like this. So we used a little bit of state money on April 20th. We teed up what we called the Last Mile Grant Program. And this was an address specific funding round, very small, just to kind of get our toes wet with trying out address specific funding, because we think this is an important tool going forward. It's making sure that we can reach 1 or 2 residents that might be sitting in an otherwise served area, but they have a long driveway or they sit on the wrong side of the railroad tracks and it's tough to get internet across the railroad tracks. There's lots of those situations in South Carolina. But we did a little pilot project. This was very quick. It was roughly $1 million in total investment. It was not, but it gave us a chance to try that out. Those projects were all required to complete by December 31st. So we're doing some wrap up right now on last mile grants, documenting success, making sure that they worked out. The other thing you can see on the map is the March 22 map set did get published in June. In the state of South Carolina, we have a March map set and a September map set, and that's our iteration, and that really locks in with the Federal Communications Commission reporting cycle. So all of the ISPs report into us at the same time they report to the FCC. That'll enabled us to short circuit the public approval process, and we get the data directly. But that's how we map. And then I think everybody knew, definitely everybody knew on May 13th, Governor McMaster signed House Bill 4408, which turned into Act 244. And thanks for joining. And so we went live with Act 244 on May 13th. That's what officially placed $400 million in the responsibility of the Broadband Office and ORS. So we jumped pretty quickly and we stood up in less than 6 weeks the very first grant round for ARPA. And we launched that on June 30th, which was a key goal for us to get it into calendar year. We opened up our application window. Applications came in around August, and we're really excited that we have been awarding grants over the holidays. We are excitedly getting ready for a public announcement, but of course we've offered that to the governor to make the announcement when he's ready to do it. So we haven't done any PR around that, but with inauguration being tomorrow and some other things, the timing will be forthcoming. But suffice it to say that It's our first big effort at a grant round. We have gotten some ships out of port, and some projects are underway with notices to proceed, but we're saving the announcement for all at once. Our goal is to have it all done by the end of January and have PR out the door. And we think we're sitting, based on where we are right now, I feel like we're sitting pretty well. Annette, do you have anything to add to that?
Just that I wanted to say, that we've had a great response from the internet service providers that, basically provide service in the state of South Carolina. We are very thrilled that we had such a good response. We're working diligently. The broadband office is working, headed by Jim. They are working hard to finalize that process by the end of the month. And then we're going to roll right back into our next opportunity for grant rounds.
Which
So-
is a perfect segue. And by the way, Nanette is the agency director here at ORS. I'm not sure we did all the, and you can join.
Hey, I'm letting Jim run the show.
You're welcome. You own all the chairs, so you can pull up. So this is what calendar year 2022 looked like. And so you can see we're squeaking over into January. But I will tell you, especially when we get into the BEAD discussion, you'll all see why we've been consumed with a lot of stuff on our plates. But as we skip ahead, I did want to, come on. There we go. A little touchy. I did want to talk, our current grant round, we call it the Priority Area Grant Round. Just for everybody's benefit, we've been teaching the ISPs how to play Pac-Man. And I say that affectionately because we turned our application process into a process where they apply to go for priority areas. Think the cherries. When you all think back on playing Pac-Man, we put the cherries on the playing board. Okay. So we did that by identifying census blocks with a lot of K-12 students. We have census blocks that are known as difficult development areas. These are places which the U.S. Housing and Urban Development has historically identified, those census blocks. And we also had census blocks with no internet service provider. So what we did is we create the playing board and we challenged the ISPs to play Pac-Man. And every project that came in was required to address at least one of these, had to have a census block with one of these in it. And they're required to build to 100% of the homes in that census block. So the net of that is, and I will, big kudos to, I know Mike is on this call. The GIS team here is doing extraordinary stuff. The ISPs are squealing. Apologize to the ISPs, but we have forced them through serious rigor on the front end to get the maps perfect. And we're folding in the new broadband service location fabric from the FCC, making sure that all of the homes are being addressed, on and on and on. But that's what priority areas are. As we, I mentioned the maps. This was kind of a cue for me to, we have not released the September map set yet. However, that's because we need to know the results of the ARPA grant round. We actually have all the data, has been done for months, but the planning map, what we are so proud of is telegraphing to all of the citizens of South Carolina where we are investing. That's a big part of the mapping. So until we have all of those grants locked in and signed, sealed, and delivered, we did not want to publish the maps. So, but we're within 2 weeks of probably getting that done, or certainly by the end of January. So as we go into calendar year 2023, I'll caution that all of these dates are subject to change, but these are the broad strokes of what we're looking at. We have telegraphed this notion of what we call an accelerated project grant. And these are for projects that, ARPA money, American Rescue Plan Act money, technically came to the state of South Carolina on March 21st of 2021. And it did not get allocated us until May of the following year. Meanwhile, there were a bunch of ISPs that were building hard and building fiber into unserved areas with their own dollars. So the General Assembly gave us permission. There's actually a special part of the Act 244 that gave us permission to take care and make sure we cover some funds for projects work that's already done. So we're standing up a special grant round. The project had to be started, so construction had to start on March 15th, 2021, the day that ARPA was enacted. And the projects had to be complete by June 30th, 2022. So this is a retrospective project, and we do want to take care of those ISPs that worked hard. So the other thing that we've got on the playing board for this calendar year, U.S. Treasury has come back to us with some comments on our capital projects fund application, and we're trying to get that teed up for May of this year. Again, that's idea, and what we're doing with the Main Street, I'll tell you about that in a minute. That's a key feature of our capital projects fund, is to work on the municipal areas and to really focus in on them. We'll talk about that in a second. But you can see where these grants begin to overlap. So Main Street, the CPF is going to start somewhere in the May timeframe. We've learned some lessons. We want to get this wrapped by the end of November. In other words, we do not want grant happening in the holidays again. Our goal will be, that's a lesson learned. It's a nightmare to get documents signed and things like that. So a hard stop for us will be Thanksgiving on this program, to have it all done such that the ISPs can start building their projects. So here's again, we'll talk accelerated projects. Work had to be done from March 15th to June 30. Had to be unserved areas of the state at the time. So we're looking back at the older maps, right? September 2021 maps. We anticipate awarding approximately $25 million. That's what we're expecting to do. We will likely accept applications beginning the first quarter this year. ISPs have to document operational status. We're working through all the details of how they will do that. We want only projects that were capable of doing 100 meg symmetric. So we want to support those that have built fiber, particularly, and the high-speed technologies, high-speed cable, but done it the right way. Both fiber and cable capable of 100 meg symmetric, but all of the piece parts have to be put in place for that to occur. And then this, of course, does require a complete financial submission from the ISPs, because in getting money, they are signing up for the ARPA program. So they are subject to all of the annual reporting requirements and everything else,
ACP.
including ACP.
No
Davis.
peacemaking though.
Yeah.
These entities did not get
Any
public
other
funds.
public funds. Yep, this is just for those that did it really with their own money. But does that make sense? Kind of the accelerated programs are all about. Capital Projects Fund, this piece, we still don't have our official permission from Treasury, but I think we're nearing that. And here's the big idea, is to add an additional priority area. We're not taking anything away, but we already have K-12, difficult development. We're putting a new cherry. This might be a blueberry on the Pac-Man board. And I think we will do that, actually.
You played a lot of Pac-Man.
But you know what's neat is, if we can make some special investments happen in our Main Street communities, if we can lift up permanently 5 or 10 Main Street areas, that will be a huge investment. And the idea is we don't lift up just the Main Street, it's every resident within a couple mile buffer of downtown. So the idea is to totally reinvent the whole community. Every home. I mean, when an ISP signs up for this, they will have to commit to having every single home will have to have fiber in that radius. And you think about it, most of our main streets were set up for walking, right? So a lot of the homes are capable of walking to the downtown, which would give us free public Wi-Fi on the main streets, which would give us, places for entrepreneurs to get their start, on and on and on. It's an exciting
But
idea.
it's not limited to Main Street.
No.
Our capital projects fund, we got a lot of stakeholder feedback. Jim, you might want to just speak briefly to that. It's not limited to Main Street.
Correct. We are, and we did this, so I told about playing Pac-Man. You can still score points by going anywhere that's unserved in South Carolina, but we have some special bonus features when you pick off the blueberries and the cherries on the playing board. But we are paying attention to every unserved area in South Carolina, trust me. And we just have different conditions for the priority areas. But yeah, we're just adding, that's a key point. We're adding a Main Street priority with the Capital Projects Fund.
Jim,
Yes.
going back to the accelerated grants for those that have already put the infrastructure in, are you going to be assessing the adoption rates since those are
Yes.
already in place and looking at that? And is that a way
Absolutely.
to possibly get some ideas on what's working and not working in adoption since they're already in place?
Yes, and Madeline, that's a great segue for later in our discussion, but also for right now. It'll be helpful for everybody to know the long-term commitment of these ARPA projects is the ISPs are committed to not only giving us construction reports when they finish, but they're committed to annual follow-on reporting in subsequent years. And part of what they're reporting out is their adoption rates. Yes, and so we're requiring surveys. That's a great point. Thank you for mentioning that. We're also requiring that the ISPs pay attention to affordability. We require they have to participate in the Affordable Connectivity Plan, and also it's carefully documented what they consider. Each ISP has to document what they consider to be their affordable plan. And of course, the goal is to get those affordable plans to somewhere right around $30 because the Affordable Connectivity Program is a $30 subsidy. So if the internet costs $30 and you get a refund of $30, you're getting to a net zero. And we're trying to have as many homes fit that equation in South Carolina as possible. Madeline, did I answer your question okay?
Sure. I mean, you don't have a sense of what the adoption rates have been for those that you've already gone in, have you?
We're collecting that now and can give you some ideas. We are doing that on the rural broadband grant side, and yes, we do.
Okay.
Okay, so let's dig in, and I think we're probably going to spend the balance of our time talking about this new stuff that's coming in. So the American Rescue Plan Act put forth $400 million into the broadband world. Looking ahead on November, I think it was November 21st, 2021, President Biden signed the Investments in Infrastructure Jobs Act, also called the Bipartisan Infrastructure. There's all sorts of lingo around this. The long and short of it is, with a stroke of a pen, President Biden and Congress, they allocated $65 billion at the federal level into the broadband world. And this slide is the most helpful slide I have found to understand how those piece parts come together. I'm going to start in the gray area on the top right. You can see that $14 billion went to the Federal Communications Commission. That was to fund the Affordable Connectivity Program and some other things that the FCC has been working on. It also placed about $2 billion in the U.S. Department of Agriculture for a project that is what's called a reconnect. So both the FCC and USDA have been historical investors in broadband. They have invested in infrastructure all around the United States. But you'll see there's this new entity. Some of you may not have heard of this before. It's called NTIA. It's a business unit within U.S. Department of Commerce, which is a massive federal entity. But $48 billion is going into NTIA, and there are four piece parts of that. You have the BEAD program, which is the broadband office responsibility. That's here at ORS. You have the digital equity program, and Governor McMaster, we'll talk more about that in a second, but Governor McMaster wanted digital equity to be in Department of Administration. So we've intentionally, Mike and I are working locked in arm in arm on this, but that's how it works out. And then we also have a tribal piece, which is very important nationally. I will say candidly, in the state of South Carolina, it's not as big of a deal here. We're very concerned about our tribes, but we think we can use our other funds to cover the tribes in South Carolina. When you look out west in the North Dakotas, in the Utahs, the tribal needs are extraordinary. and we can't compete with that at a national level. So we've just, smartly, we've not played in that space thinking that we would not be nationally competitive. The middle mile, I will say, we worked earlier or late last year with Santee Cooper, and Santee Cooper decided to file for a grant for the middle mile program strategically to activate. They have 1,200 miles of middle mile fiber that's in the air on their backbone transmission line. So they went after a grant. But really, the thrust of what we're going to talk about is those left-hand two, the bead and also the digital equity are the two pieces that are going to consume much of my life in the next 12 months. I know that. And Mike, too.
Yep.
Talking first about bead, and then I'm going to pass the baton to my friends. So the BEAD program is all about infrastructure. It's additional dollars. I think what's notable in terms of dollars, the analysts have projected for South Carolina that we may get between 700 million and $1 billion more for South Carolina infrastructure, which is exciting and scary. But I think the point I want to make there is there's an allocation, there's a formula allocation that will happen sometime June-ish of this year, which will decide the exact allocation of those dollars on a per state basis. But we probably won't have any of that money until late in calendar year 2024. So it's not near-term money. I want to make sure everybody knows that. I think best case scenario is going to be late 2024 before we have anything to work with, which is okay because we still have a lot of ARPA dollars that we have to move to get that done. But just when you think of BEAD, think infrastructure. It's kind of chapter 2, if you will, of dollars coming to South Carolina. But to get to the big dollars, to get to the pot of gold, we have to go through a planning process. So federal programs are famous for making you go through the compulsory exercises to get to the pot of gold. And this is what I really want to talk about today is there were a set of 9 possible tasks that the state of South Carolina could utilize. We picked 6 tasks, 6 activities for us to focus on really in the next 9 months. We have to have this all done by August 28th. And I'm looking over at Tom. Tom, you got a lot to do by August 28th. It's a lot. So the 6 activities are research and data collection, a lot of survey work, publications and outreach. There will be a lot of PR happening. You're going to hear a lot about broadband in the next 9 months. It's going to be crazy. Employee training for the broadband office and operating, items 3 and 4. These are a little bit mislabeled because they gave us some funds to hire some consultants and do some other things. But increasing the capacity of the broadband office, that's also dollars for salaries to cover and help us increase our staff. Item 5 is called asset mapping. And this is a special kind of mapping. It has nothing to do with really GIS work, but it's mapping the other entities in South Carolina that do broadband related stuff. So this might be a group that does telehealth training. It might be a group that trains senior citizens. Making a complete asset list is what this is all about. So don't think broadband maps. This is about doing that. And we'll be working with, in that particular case, we're working with Clemson on that topic to go. But you'll see item number 6 is a huge thing, is conducting surveys of unserved, underserved, and underrepresented communities. Let me talk about that. There are federal definitions. Unserved means less than 25.3. You've heard us 25 megabits per second download speed, 3 megabits per second up. Underserved means less than 120. That's the new federal definition for underserved. Underrepresented means the voices in South Carolina that we are required to make sure that are reflected in our Native American communities, our Latin American communities. We're required to reflect those voices into our broadband plan. And it's all with the goal to better understand the barriers to adoption. That is our survey responsibility. And I'm going to switch to this next slide. And Mike, you're on deck because your slides are coming next. So this is a process slide I put together, very high level, but it gives you an idea of what is going to be happening. So the BEAD planning grant and also the digital equity planning grants both really got signed the same day. We went months with crickets, and then all of a sudden, Shazam, they dropped. But it started on December 1st, 2022. And that started our 270-day shot clock, which is why I've been extra pale in the last few months. Because it's very fast. If you look backwards and you factor in all of the things we have to do, I'm actually going to start backwards on this slide and work into it. August 28, 2023, we are required to submit the 5-year broadband plan, which has 2 pieces. It has an infrastructure piece and it has a digital equity piece. They both have to be done and reported to the federal government on August 28th. We are required by law to have a 30-day public comment period in there, which means you work your way backwards. We really have to be done by the end of July. I mean, done, right? Published for comment. And then you go through and heck, we're a state agency after all, right? Lots of review, internal, external, all of those things before it sees the light of day. So you factor in internal review, external review, public. You think about statistical results. We've got all of these surveys, and guess we do have a goal of 30,000 finished surveys, which means we're going to be pushing out probably 150,000 requests to get that level of, maybe more than that, to get that level of response. So we're counting on Cable Association and Telephone Association to broadcast to the world that this survey exists, Association of Counties,
Jim, was there an RFP? I'm sorry to interrupt, and I can ask my question later, but for the marketing group that you guys put
Yeah.
out, they're going to participate in that?
oh yes.
Okay.
And they're both of those.
Like an ad agency?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'll talk about that in one second, but while I'm on this stream of consciousness, you can see plan preparation, which means statistical results. We have all 3 research universities are in the game, Clemson, MUSC, USC. We have Commission on Higher Education in the game, which means we're going to fold in our HBCU participation as well. And we're going to have a lot of participation on this across the board. This is a whole of government approach to getting this done. So I think Nanette can echo this, and Mike, if we pick up and we ask for help from any other state agency, they are bending over backwards right now. The Department of Motor Vehicles, as an example, has volunteered to, on their digital screens when you're waiting to get your driver's license, they're going to advertise the broadband survey. That kind of support is happening across the board. Commerce, you name the players. And I know, Mike, you can echo that as well. But I don't want to steal Mike's thunder, but we have baked into the cake a roadshow across the state of South Carolina. I'll leave it at that. Mike can give you some more. But the survey instrument, which we are already engaged in doing, you can see just working backwards, we need our survey done, fully published by the end of the month. There's no question. If we don't have that sucker done, we can't possibly get 30,000 surveys collected. And by done, I mean, that has to pass full academic rigor to make sure the questions are worded perfectly, because we can't get to the end and then score it and find out we wrote the questions wrong. So that is underway, and we're working on this. But you can see this is a very aggressive schedule to get to that August 28th date. And we can't count on any extensions being provided. We have to march as if that is a hard stop. Maybe we get a grace, but we're not counting on it.
Jim,
Yes, ma'am.
do you want to ask nonprofits to help you get that survey out?
You betcha. Thanks for volunteering.
We have our annual gathering in March, and that'd be a great place to be doing the helping before and during.
In fact, I know I'm presenting, so you can count on that being part of the presentation.
Jim, this is Gwyneth, and I would like to offer our services, SCIII and the foundation, on whatever we can do to assist with that survey.
Your ears must have been burning because you guys are in on this, and I apologize. We have not, due to the timing of this. I mean, I can tell you, the grant documents landed the day I left town. They came in after hours, the day I left town for Thanksgiving, and then it's been, going crazy. And we have ton of procurement work. We can announce officially that we've hired Ernst & Young to act as the BEAD planning consultant and digital equity consultant for the state of South Carolina. That's why Tom Rizakis is here today. Also, we have hired Riggs Partners to be the marketing consultant. We got through both of those procurements. They both got signed the day before Christmas. So those are exciting. And we do have a smaller company we're equally excited about called Visby that has been working on the survey to get that packaged up, and they'll be working very closely with USC research team to get those perfect. But thank you all for in advance for picking up the phone when we call with a panic. But everybody's in on this. Trust me, you just don't know it yet. Okay, Mike, take it away. You can scroll down.
Okay,
That clip
scroll down.
down towards you. Yeah.
All right, thanks, Jim. Thanks, Nanette, for all your support too. And I think I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, I recollect about 3 years ago, as this stuff began to be discussed, President Thomas Alexander called a meeting of all interested parties. And you were there. I remember it, and a number of people sat down that kind of acted as a precursor. We didn't know that there was going to be COVID come along, and we didn't know that there was going to be all this money. But I think that foresight was part of the reason why we got this jump start.
Yep.
And that's very, very important because we seem to be very far ahead of most folks. Jim's driving the bus, and digital equity has 2 really good seats on the bus. And that's Sarah Pincelli and myself. And the presentation we have for you today is just be relatively short, but it'll give some background. Before I dive in, what's really very rewarding for me is tangentially in my career, I've been involved with stuff going all the way back to 1997. You may remember that in the state infrastructure study. Okay. And in that state infrastructure study, it talked about 3 primary forms of investment that needed to take place in the state in order to move our economy forward. It talked about technology, it talked about roads, and then talked about water and wastewater. And it's rewarding as a result of all the stuff that's happened over the last several years. We finally have monies to invest in all of those. And in some cases, it's much more than I ever anticipated. Being in budget for a long time, I used to round to the nearest million, and now I'm rounding to the nearest billion. So with that, I'll dive in. The Digital Equity Office, this is it, folks. So let me move on down. As Jim said earlier, July 12th, Governor McMaster sent a letter to the Assistant Secretary, Alan Davidson, that the Department of Administration will be administering the Digital Equity Program. And lo and behold, that's what occurred. I moved over to admin from the Senate Finance Committee of the Senate on September the 2nd, and immediately jumped into the Digital Equity Office. And I have my partner in crime here, Sarah, who will be helping with that. You have to ask the question, why Department of Administration? Part of it has to do with the fact that the Department of Administration and its precursor agency, the State Budget and Control Board, really did a lot of outreach and planning in the intergovernmental process. And that's largely what digital equity is about, is bringing people together from the state level, dealing with the federal government, all the way down to the community level, obviously dealing with counties, dealing with municipalities. So I think there's a unique type of background there that will help with regards to all of this. Our charge is to create a robust, comprehensive 5-year statewide digital plan, and that'll serve as a benchmark and a roadmap for achieving equity across the state to meet the requirements of one of our new acronyms, the NTIA. There must be at least 80 acronyms to learn with all these different groups. And you can see there the things that we're supposed to do with setting up the office and moving forward with staff recruitment, community and stakeholder engagement, data collection, report development, and distribution. So that's kind of the plowing of the ground that we did in September, October, November. And then actually I was meeting with Jim, I think it was late November, early December. And we had our application in. And while I was meeting with him, I got an email that said that our application had been approved.
And a text from the governor's office.
Yeah, and a text from the governor's office. So when it rains, it pours. Timeline of our work technically is 12/1/22 begins our shot clock, and we have 12 months. But we know because of our very close alliance with the BEAD program that we're going to have to get finished at the same time with the same timelines than as the BEAD program. So you're going to see the two groups here move very, very quickly with regards to finishing up and getting all the work done. We have to develop the plan in accordance with the statute, the Infrastructure Act, and provide a minimum of 30 days of public comment. You all have heard about that, so it moves the clock back. And we're going to get busy very, very quickly as a result of that. Back, okay. The digital equity staff is working in close collaboration with the broadband office. You see our two logos up there. I thought that looked pretty nice. Thanks for your help.
Yeah.
And for both programs to succeed, we have to work together. So I'll tell you a quick story on the side. Jim's background, his academic background is from North Carolina State University. He has his red cup. I did my graduate work at UNC Chapel Hill. And that's a bit like in this state, Clemson and South Carolina. So I wore my old well UNC Chapel Hill pin today, but we're sitting down at the table, we're communicating, and we're working together. So we can make anything work in this state. After the fiber, what are the impediments? That's what we aim to find out. First of all, we have to know about the costs. That is an impediment. And I can tell you from dealing with my 86-year-old mother, who got her first iPhone this year, because after my father passed away 2 years ago, I wanted to make sure that whenever she went somewhere grocery shopping, I knew where she was. And I could track her with that iPhone. And she said, "This is awfully expensive." Well, Mom, don't worry about it. I'm just going to add you to my plan. And everything worked out fine. The knowledge. So yesterday I was with her and she said something to the effect, "I'm not sure I know how to text. So if I need to contact you to go to that doctor's appointment, how do I text?" So she got a 5-minute lesson yesterday on texting. I sent her one last night and I haven't received a response back. So she's probably going to get another 5-minute lesson the next couple days. It's the knowledge to use it. Oops, I think I must have done something wrong with the clicker here.
The mouse might have left the screen. Get it.
Yep, there we
There
go.
you
Up, right there. Okay, now
Yeah.
let's see if it works. Yeah, Jim knew about it. And ironically, the next thing was devices. So you can have the access to whatever technology, the cost may be there and you're able to afford it. But if you don't have the device, it really doesn't make a whole lot of difference. And for a lot of these people that will be within our wheelhouse, that's very, very important. And it doesn't have to necessarily be sophisticated. And what we'll look at is forms of assistance related to all three of those. And that's where we'll have to do the intergovernmental process. And we'll also be including not-for-profit organizations that will help sort of the day-to-day work of government, dealing with individuals and helping them with these types of assistance. The target audiences are very interesting, and this comes from the DE portion, the Infrastructure Act. We are required to include in our process minority communities, rural communities, veterans, aged, and tribal communities. Well, if you're a lifelong resident of the state like I am, you know that from a landmass standpoint, you're talking about at least 2/3 of the state of South Carolina, right there. You're not necessarily talking about 2/3 of the population, because I think, and it's 6 counties or 4 counties equal 25% of our population, and about 9 or 10 are 50% of our population. And then the rest of the state is relatively rural in nature. So we'll be targeting these communities as we move forward in the digital equity program. The engagement will engage the communities and stakeholders. The strategies will be including, but not limited to, the core programs, a diverse set of stakeholders, really getting out there in the community and listening, and then trying to provide some very robust feedback mechanisms to ensure that what we're doing is in this final plan will include residents, or as termed, lived experts on the core planning team. So focus on the local community and as best we can with individuals to get input. That's really what we're talking about here. And that's exciting. You can look at the list of key stakeholders. We've reached out to a number of these others. If you are listening in and haven't received a phone call from us yet, you're going to get one, and you can look at the list. I won't take the time to go through the details. This, as Jim said, is truly an intergovernmental process that includes all forms of government, both
Association,
official
Police,
and
Municipal
non-official.
Association, the COGS, on and on.
Yeah, yeah, just, it's everybody that you can list, that deals in the governmental process and not-for-profit organizations. The roadshow, this is, you're gonna hear about this very, very soon. We'll be hitting the roadshow with the planning stage. In the initial application, we talked about the 9 regional areas of the state. The way that I think about it is the 10 COG areas, and they match up pretty closely. Many communities, and the goal is to get the regional stakeholder engagement in meetings, to have the outreach, to collect the data, to meet directly with the stakeholders, and then to complete the project activities. I want to wind up with this one slide. At least one very learned group of folks estimated that for South Carolina, that the digital equity portion could be eligible after the planning stage for as much as $40 million in grants, and that over a 4-year period would be sent for specific activities in specific locations. But I've been around long enough to know that dealing with the federal government, some states or localities don't do it as well as others. I think we're ahead of the game. So if we do that planning very well, that $40 million can increase and increase and increase. Because if you have a federal agency that has money and it's not distributed, their role is to distribute money. So if we're on the ball and we do our jobs, that money could eventually grow. And you've already seen the amounts of money that are coming to the BEAD program. So we're talking about a phenomenal build out where everybody in this state should have access, direct access, and the ability to participate in this new digital economy. Nothing prohibits the South Carolina General Assembly in the future from appropriating money for this also. And I've noticed over the years in dealing with them that if it's a popular program and it has an impact, they'll strongly consider the appropriation of more monies. And the last point I want to leave you with is, over the last number of years, there's been a lot said about the labor force participation rate in the state of South Carolina and how that lags compared to other states. Part of it has to do with the fact that we've become a mecca for retired people in the state. Horry County is the fastest growing county in the state, growing over 30% from the latest biennial census, and many of those people are retired. So that's a part of it. But something happened with our labor force as a result of post-COVID marketplace, a number of us work from home. And I believe that, and I think the statistics show this, the labor force participation rate, all those types of things. Many people are waiting to go back into the workforce because what they want, by and large, is a hybrid form of work. So they're saying, if you want me to come in the office 2 or 3 days a week, I'm fine to do that. But those other 2 days, I want to be able to work from home. I need to pick up my kids. It helps me to run the errands, do things around the house. The BEAD program and the digital equity program hopefully act as a catapult for increasing that labor force participation rate as the ways that we work change over this next decade. Whenever that occurs and more people work, more money is earned, total personal income grows, and there's greater wealth than for everybody in the state. And you ask anybody that's down the street meeting today in that General Assembly, that's what they want to have happen. So that's why this is a very, very exciting time. And Jim, that concludes my portion, and it's back to you.
Great. Well, what we're going to do here is I'm going to stop sharing this screen, if I can figure out how to do that. There we go. And I am hopeful that we've got there we go. We've got Ryan Palmer out there. So we can talk for a couple minutes, and I'll invite my friends Microsoft to go ahead and Ryan, I can see you. Can you hear us okay, Loren?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We're good to go.
Great. Let me get my video going here too.
And then Ryan, you can get your stuff together. I'm just going to I'll invite anybody that might have comments so far while you're getting set up, just to get going. Any questions or comments so far on stuff?
Hey,
That
Jim. Jim, it's Lisa Aiken. I'm sorry, I was listening via phone, but I've just been able to join via video. And I sent you an email message because I couldn't unmute myself on phone, but public libraries are happy to do the training that you all were talking about and to be places of, especially for like equipment use. We've been doing that for years since technology has changed. So we are more than happy to do that. The same with surveys, getting the surveys out.
Well, thanks for that that offer of support, Lisa. And I know also when we talk about our roadshow, we're going to need facilities to utilize. So the libraries would be a perfect place to do that. So we're going to count on you. Your ears were burning.
Okay, great. They really will be. People are used to going to their public libraries for these types of conversations that are happening in their communities.
And they're wonderfully equipped and capable of handling that. So we'll look forward to that.
Great.
Anybody else have comment? Thank you for that, Lisa.
Thank you.
And Happy New Year too.
You too.
Jim, I have one question.
Yep.
Mike, you mentioned the 40 million additional dollars that you all think. So that is, in fact, in addition to what was already allocated for BEAD, or is that okay, that's what I thought.
This is
Totally separate.
This is a separate tranche
Okay,
of the Infrastructure Act.
okay,
That's the tranche coming from the $2 billion that's flowing nationally through
okay.
Through digital.
digital equity.
Yeah.
And, and I like to call that the pot of gold. That's the pot of gold for doing a good job with
Absolutely.
digital equity planning, is the ability to participate in that competitive grant round for digital equity. So,
And all the survey work that you guys are getting ready to launch, will one survey instrument meet both needs?
yes,
Okay.
we're gonna have one survey, and think of it like this broadly. There'll be a short form and a long form. So some people will be more into sending more data, but we're also trying to develop it with specialized modules. So a person that's interested in precision agriculture can fill in those questions. Somebody who's interested in K-12 or has additional detail can fill in those questions. And by doing that, we can have special purpose surveys in the broader context. So that's what we're working to achieve. It's a big lift. But one survey is all we can afford to market, and we want everybody going to the same place. We are also doing surveys for county level and also municipal level surveys. Because what we're trying to do is see how well equipped our counties are. what capabilities do they have on their county website? Can you pay your electric bill at the county? Can you pay your water bill at the county? So we're trying to analyze those. So there'll be 46 of those surveys, which are coming down your swim lane. But then the municipal as well, we'll document the capabilities of our municipal governments. And then we look for the convergence of that, how often does a resident correspond with electronically the county? Do they read the newsletter? See, that kind of stuff. So that's what we're trying to ascertain with our survey work. So I know we've got
Can I ask
Yeah.
one other quick question about, you mentioned in the underrepresented, the Native Americans. So in South Carolina, we only have the Catawba Nation that is the recognized, a recognized tribe. Does that money cover the other tribes, or do they have to be a federally recognized tribe in order to qualify?
It's a great question. So the tribal dollars are really, I don't think we'll be nationally competitive with the
Yeah.
NCAA tribal dollars. That said, we've got plenty of other money. So all of the other tribes, like the Yamasee I'm familiar with in Allendale County, we can satisfy their requirements by using ARPA dollars and BEAD dollars.
Okay.
And we are paying attention. We have folded in, the Commission for Minority Affairs has taken the lead on outreach to all of our Native American communities. In fact, they're required to be part of this federal planning. So we're thinking about that clearly, and I think we have tons of dollars to get the job done for our tribes.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. I see Ryan, I see my friend Alan Kim out there. And I've been excited to have you guys come in and show us the Microsoft Digital Equity Dashboard. So I'm going to stop talking and we can come back if we have more time at the end. But we've got you guys about 30 minutes, so take it away.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate it. I'll start us off, and then I'll hand over to Alan and to really walk us through and do a demonstration of the dashboard. But first, I just want to thank you for inviting us to join. Just even the last 10 minutes, it gets me excited to hear how South Carolina is so ahead of the game. And I know I expressed this when we met earlier, but you all have an impressive track record already. And we meet with almost all states to talk about these issues, and I will say not every state is as well positioned to take full advantage of the BEAD program and ARPA funding and Digital Equity Act funding, and to really put it to good use so we can have sustainable change and sustainable connectivity for the people in South Carolina. So please keep doing what you're doing. It's really it's gratifying to just to be able to meet with you all and hear about how far ahead you are in these conversations. And so I should backtrack a second. My name is Ryan Palmer. I'm a global digital equity strategist on the Microsoft Airband team. Before that, I've been here about a year. I spent about 7.5 years at the FCC, overseeing the Universal Service Fund programs and the division that does the oversight and administration of those. So have that as background. Also have state work in my background. I'm from West Virginia. I was a member of the West Virginia Public Service Commission for about 5 years, and before that, Deputy General Counsel for Joe Manchin. And so I have an interesting perspective, that really gives me a lot of respect for the work you all are doing. So I know it's really not easy to drive change at the state level, and you all are doing a great job. And so I appreciate it. The reason we're here to discuss a digital equity data dashboard and why this was created is because we learned, and others, Alan and people, in the federal government and state government levels, there's a real lack of meaningful digital equity data. And we hear the term digital equity a lot. Congress, has embraced it, but it has been difficult to really dig in and say what are the factors driving equity gaps in our local communities, especially. And so Microsoft, Alan and his team, working with our Airband, pulled together the Digital Equity Data Dashboard, which grabs all the different public data we have out there into one place and layers it on top of each other and gives what I call an election map visualization, where you can really go in and pick and choose what data is important to you. So we don't define what factors define digital equity. We want to give you the tools to do that because you know what's best and what's really needed in your local communities. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Alan, but I'm here for questions and really think you all, hopefully you're going to enjoy this dashboard and be able to put it to good use. I think we can all learn a lot from it. So, thank you. Can't hear you yet, Alan.
How about now?
There you go.
Great. Hey, thank you, everyone. And thank you for your time. Just really happy to be here to present this to the team. Jim, thanks for inviting us. I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully that works. Uh, Let me know if folks can see this.
See whiteboard?
Oh, no. What about now?
No blank.
Whiteboard 2.
Oh, no. Okay. Let's try that again. How about now?
Now we got it.
All right. Okay. So the digital equity dashboard, it resides on the Airband Initiative website, and we'll share the link to this website after this call or during, if Ryan, if you have the chance to do that. But there's a few places to get a hold of it, but we'll go to this direct link here. And as this is pulling up, before we jump right into South Carolina, we'll go through kind of a mission statement view. I won't read every word on here, but it's definitely the team, as we're working with the Airband team, we're working to increase equitable access to broadband technology skills. And it's all underlined by data and helping to provide data to drive data-driven decision making as much as possible. Where did we get the data? As this pulling up. So there's about 22 different inputs that we loaded in here. I'm sure most of the folks on the call are very familiar with some, if not all of these. We pulled in a lot of data from the American Community Survey. So we have, for skills, we have educational attainment, poverty level. We just recently added percentage of population 60 plus years and over, veteran status, disability, households without a desktop or laptop, and internet subscriptions. We've also included data from the latest publicly available FCC's broadband report. Now, I know that just recently the FCC's produced an updated preliminary broadband map, but this has the last, I guess, publicly reported data set. What's a little different is typically a lot of folks see this as an all-up broadband availability number, but within the data from the internet service providers, technology is also provided. So we've included technology data as well as different layers. And then we've also partnered with Broadband Now to determine or estimate the percentage of annual median income spent on broadband. And then we've also included data from code.org for the percentage of high schools that may not have foundational computer science courses offered. And then we've also included a Microsoft's estimate of percentage of people not using the internet at broadband speeds. The last two line items, code.org and Microsoft data, we've loaded it at the county level. Everything else is at the census tract level. So we tried to get as granular as possible without, having too many different layers of geographical levels. So we had census tract and then county. And for the Microsoft data, we provided zip code level data out on a GitHub site. So if you go to the resources tab, there is a link to that data set to get on GitHub. So if you folks want to see at the zip code level, downloadable data file has been made available. We're going to go to the Explore tab, and we built the tool per state. We felt that folks really want to drill into their specific geographical area, so we limited to that. And as the map pulls up, you'll see a beautiful map of South Carolina, and the map is broken up into census tracts. So there's 1,103 census tracts that are represented here. The color code of blue or dark blue indicates lowest digital inequity, and then I would say the burnt orange represents the highest digital inequity. The way the color code is determined is by the inputs that are selected on the left-hand side. What's a little different than maybe different sites that have pulled together digital equity data sets is we tried to create this as dynamically as possible, meaning, it's maybe I'm dating myself, but it's like a choose your own adventure, right? Like someone's definition of digital equity may be different in South Carolina versus North Carolina or Washington or Texas. So we really wanted to create a dynamic tool where users can mix and match different inputs. And when I say users, we really wanted to make this open to pretty much anybody who can access the internet. So as mentioned, it's out on the Airband Initiative website, so it's free for anybody to use as long as they can get to the internet. So we'll go through different combinations of inputs, but I just wanted to kind of give an overview of the dashboard itself, and then we can drive into different pieces. When you first pull this up, we have 5 pre-selected inputs. We felt that these 5 best align to those 3 data sets that I briefly mentioned, the broadband, skills, and technology. And so those have been included here. So that's the left-hand side. And then on the right-hand side, it's a scatter plot, and each dot represents one of the 1,103 census tracts. So all census tracts are represented here. The higher you are in the vertical axes indicates the higher digital inequity. And then on the horizontal axes, the further on the right you are, just on this particular view, indicates highest population. The feedback that we received from kind of the initial reviews that we conducted was, hey, it'd be great if we could mix and match the horizontal axes. And so what you'll see here is that you can select different inputs to control the horizontal axis. So you can say, hey, I want to see the horizontal breakdown by the percentage of folks that identify as white by census tract. Or people that identify as Black or African American, and you can start to see different patterns appear, and some correlations that appear. But as most of us know, correlation doesn't equal causation. I think each of these different combinations probably entails a project on its own, but you can quickly start to produce different patterns. So it's pretty interesting, the different combinations that get pulled together, and the correlations that start to appear. And then after you get past the map and the scatter plot, folks want to see the actual data. And so the table down below shows all 1,103 census tracts. So each row represents a census tract. It's sorted by the index value, which I'll briefly go through in a little bit. But one census tract, this census tract has 4,785 folks within that census tract. 28% identify as being white, 67% identify as Black or African American, and so on. And then also you can see the values of the inputs selected on the left-hand side. So 25 years old without graduating high schools, there's like 28% of the 25-year-old population that have not graduated high school. 62% of the households within that census tract do not have a laptop or desktop at home, and then so on. The way the index value is calculated, which determines the color coding on the map and then also on the scatter plot is, I think the best way to show that is if we just clear out the selections and we start from a blank slate. And right now there's no index value because there's no input selected. But if we were to select, let's say, households without a desktop or laptop. So now we've filtered down to one very specific input. The way the tool is built is all 1,103 census tracts, they're basically stack ranked. And I hate to say it, like it's from like worst to first, right? So this census tract in Greenwood County, it has a value of 1 because it has the highest percentage of households without a desktop or laptop. So it's if your definition of digital equity was, hey, households without a desktop or laptop, this census tract would be the top of the list. And so it gets a value of 1. And if you click on it, it drives right to where it is. So you can see quickly geographically where that's located. I don't know about you, but I don't know what census tract I live in. I know what zip code I live in, but census tracts, that goes to another level of detail that I just don't keep track of. But it is a standard unit, and so we went with that, and it provides pretty granular level of detail. But yeah, so the index value, if you're the worst of that specific input, you get a value of 1, and if you're the best, then you get a value of 0. And so then as you start to build in different inputs, let's say, hey, bachelor's degree is important. And so now you can start to pull together different bits and pieces and start to combine that. And so for this census tract, it has a value of 1.9 because it's not necessarily worst from a households with desktop or laptop, but it's pretty close to being the the worst or highest digital inequity census tract for both of those inputs. And then you can start to layer on, different inputs to come up with different combinations. And so what I've seen and what Ryan has seen and Lauren and folks as we've kind of gone through this with different states is if we go through, I think Richland is a pretty metropolitan. Yeah. So if we go to Richland and we start to just dive into different counties, it's interesting where there's different communities or pockets of colors that appear. So if I clear this out, and let's just go with the households without a desktop or laptop. Now, I don't know Richland County, unfortunately, at all, but it seems like there is a pocket of, households in this area where there's a high percentage of folks that don't have a desktop or laptop. Uh, and it could be for a variety of reasons, economics or, some other reasons that this tool doesn't get down into. But what I do think that it helps to do is we've seen a lot of folks when they start to look at this tool and they go through these different inputs, something that folks have maybe already known just by being in the area or being a part of the community, they see it now in a map that's provided with data. So it just confirms what they've already known, but now it's leveraging data to produce that and depict that. And so,
Alan,
yep.
Alan, really quickly, just a comment from the room. I know you can't see us, but there's a lot of heads nodding.
Okay.
Richland County is home to the state capital, the city of Columbia, which is where we're sitting right now.
Okay.
And there's a lot of correlation. I know we're all feeling for the areas that you're showing on the map. So thanks for doing this.
Oh, no problem, no problem. And sorry, I couldn't see the head nods, but that's great to hear. It's as we go through different inputs, it's really interesting I know in Washington State, if we look at like King County and we looked at educational attainment, and there's a North King County and a South King County when it comes to like a bachelor's degree. And in a lot of metropolitan areas, there's these patterns that appear. And it's really interesting, like definitely divides. Um, and so if there are other particular counties that you'd like to take a look at or different combinations, I know I've just been kind of flying through this, but I did want to provide some time for some interactive review. So please let me know if there's another county that you'd like to
Could
look
you
at.
go to Allendale County?
Sure.
Let's try that one.
Yeah.
Well, and while Alan's doing that, I just want to note, that we've continued to make changes to this dashboard when we've heard suggestions from whether it's from NTIA, who we've met with, who's very supportive of this and thinks it's going to be a great tool for states as they're pulling their Digital Equity Act plans together that they're going to have to review. And we've added some of the data points that Alan's talked about around veterans and others, the aging Americans and the different covered populations that come out of the act. And so we're continuously trying to make this as useful as possible to make your jobs easier, so to speak, and to also make sure that these decisions are anchored in data.
It's phenomenal. I mean, there's again a lot of heads nodding. So for your background, Allendale County is a very traditional, it's a very rural county. There's about 7,500, 8,000 homes in Allendale County total. So it stands out, but it's also been an area where we have not put a lot of infrastructure investment in. It's been, a traditionally unserved, very poor community.
School
So
district was taken over.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so if you can play around a little bit with Allendale County, I think that would be an interesting mix of things.
Sure. Yeah. As we start to look at bachelor's degree attainment, we can see just quickly that there's a high percentage of folks without a bachelor's degree. And, if we look at households without a desktop or laptop, more than half the households don't have a desktop or laptop. And something else to mention is as we're pulling through and adding different inputs, a lot, as Ryan briefly mentioned early on, a lot of this data, and I would say all this data, is open and people can download it off of the census. I think the census and the FCC has done a fabulous job of providing folks the ability to download data, but then you have to download the data. And that's where we felt that, hey, you know what, we could, let's partner with Ryan and the Airband team and Lauren and folks and figure out, hey, what can we, if there's 10 steps to, come to the answer, is there a tool that we can put out there that can help people get to step 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, maybe 10, but a tool that just brings in all those data sets so that folks don't have to download each one individually and to try to combine it themselves. So just wanted to put a plug out there for the census and the FCC. They're just providing a lot of this data. It's great. It helps us data folks actually have some ingredients to start mixing and matching pieces. So.
Well, Alan, for your benefit, I know you haven't been fully briefed on the state's broadband maps, the infrastructure side, but I know my deputy director, Mike, is grinning right now as you're talking because everything we have is census block, census tract, tuned. And so this will be a sidebar conversation, but I'm sure we can fold it all together in some very, very cool ways.
Yeah, that'd be great, Jim. Let us know how we can lean in and help, and if there's opportunity there, definitely open to it.
If the ultimate goal is to, like Mike Shealy was saying, to develop workforce and raise per capita income, I suppose if you work with Microsoft over time, that you could fold in the broadband penetration maps over 5-year, 6-year period and see the growth of annual income based on broadband penetration. We all think it's correlated, right? People are working.
Yeah, I think, one of the things we've had a lot of benefit in doing, Ryan and Alan, is documenting some static results and looking at those over time. So if we can establish some standard inputs that we look at and benchmark those, we're looking, at least I am looking at our 5-year plan as developing our necessary baseline such that as we make these investments, we can do the longitudinal tracking and really see change having occurred. We can see that from an infrastructure perspective now, but I think this is a really cool thing that I think we should come up with some static presentations that come into our broadband plan. So, nice.
Yeah, and Jim, I don't know who mentioned the trending data, but I will put something out there that we are committed to continually updating the dashboard. So as the FCC and other agencies provide, publicly available, updated data sets, we'll pull that in. But then something else that we're working on is on the left-hand side here, we've allowed, a place to actually add different inputs. And so one thing that we're working on with Ryan's team is the trending data. Like for a lot of these metrics, even though they're, a year or two old, there is some historical data that we are working on pulling in to provide that different level of view of the trended data to see how that looks.
Yeah,
Interesting, yeah.
very, very neat things. So, one real basic question, Alan, is this available to the general public? Can you go out and follow a link to this website right off the bat?
Yes, this link is available. I don't know if Ryan, if you could share that. I'm not good with the WebEx yet. I
I'm
don't
not
want
sure
to
where to
screw
put it
anything
in the
up.
chat. I have it, but
Okay, but yeah, the website.
Yes.
Anyone who can access the internet can get to the Airband Initiative website and go to the digital equity maps, and it'll fire open this Power BI dashboard, and anyone's welcome to use it. There is a download data button here at the bottom left-hand corner, and it'll download a file for South Carolina, all the underlying data, the percentages if folks are interested in rolling around in the raw data.
Well, Alan, as someone whose initial exposure to technology was an Apple II e-computer and taking numbers off of a hard copy of census data and
Yes.
putting them the precursors to Excel, I just want to say, wow.
Yes, yes.
Well, thank you for that.
Alan, I was just gonna say, I'm Anna Berger and several in this group, and, first of all, thank you. This is phenomenal, a phenomenal tool on multiple levels. But can I also say how comforting it is that someone from Microsoft also has IT challenges? It just makes me feel better. And all that, but no, seriously, thank you, guys.
Well, thank you.
We could do some.
thank you all so much for having us.
For, the Microsoft guy.
Yeah, it's interesting. Speaking of technology challenges, we work at Microsoft, but I've been in an Uber or a Lyft, and we'll start chit-chatting, and and then we'll talk about, oh, I work at Microsoft, and they'll immediately go, hey, I have a MacBook, and I can't do something in Excel in a Mac, and I'm like, hey, sorry, like, wrong group. I know someone we can talk to, but yeah, not me. But anyway, sorry.
Well, there's something that's happening with these data. We all know the larger pockets in the state, those of us who have lived here most of our lives. But the interesting part, and we don't normally think in this way, even in our most developed counties, we have pockets where there's no service. And this map helps tell that story.
Hey, Jim, speaking of technology challenges, I can't find the chat. So can Mike send the link to this in the follow-up email or
Oh,
something?
yeah. Absolutely. Thanks for letting us know. Yeah, we'll have to figure out how to get all this data out to everybody. But I hope, Madeline, that's actually a great segue. We've got a few minutes left. I'm going to open this up. Anybody else have questions? We've done most of the talking here in the room, but Lisa Aiken, I'm sure you are smiling. Dr. Nelson, I'm sure you're going crazy. Betsy Carpenter, you got to be out of your mind how cool this is.
I do love it. And Jim, I was going to say, we'd be delighted to offer you guys an exhibit table at the summit. And if you wanted to have this on a computer so people could play with it, I know there are a lot of nonprofit data geeks that would love drilling down in this.
Yeah, and so Microsoft team, are you guys available to be in person ever in South Carolina with enough notice?
I think we could be absolutely definitely the right notice, like you say, and situation. we're always looking for other opportunities to provide demonstrations on the dashboard and get this out there. So
And this tool is free for us to use, right? There's no.
absolutely,
That's right.
absolutely. It's funny. We've had a few meetings with policymakers at the end of like, well, how much does this cost? And we're like, no, I promise. And they're like, they're a little skeptical at first. Once they realize it's free, it's even better.
Absolutely. Dr. Nelson, Lisa Aiken, did you guys I saw you come on video.
No, I am, you do know me well. I am very excited. I love a map and I love data. So I'm super excited to see this dashboard. Thank you.
Jim, I'm excited. I didn't have any questions, just looking forward, to being able to assist as much as possible.
Fantastic. And I know I think I could speak safely on behalf of my, Mike Hersberger. I know you are geeking out on this right now. And having this data available is so cool. We have a lot of great talent in the broadband office, and getting access to this raw data will be fabulous.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Jim. And I'll tell you, just an add-on here. I'm curious from Microsoft's perspective, is this something we could embed as an iframe right into our site?
That is something that we'd have to work out. But in other instances, we have done stuff like that. But let us take that back and see what we can do about providing the iframe.
We're running into the same situation with the FCC maps that are out there now. The FCC has published a new application it's actually very informative. And rather than put multiple pieces of information out there, if the feds have it and they have it down great, it behooves us to just link to that rather than duplicate something they've already done. So we'll be interested to hear back about that.
Okay.
Thanks.
Fantastic. Well, Alan and Ryan, as an ex-Microsoft employee, I can say I am really proud of the work you guys are doing. So thanks for that. And I think I can express our thanks on behalf of everybody. If I didn't say it before, Happy New Year. We're totally grateful for you guys jumping in, especially on short notice. And I think, Alan, you're on the West Coast, right? So you got up extra early for us?
Yeah, anytime.
So thank you all so much. Lauren, I know you're on here too, so thank you for coordinating and, calling the audible and getting this done.
Well, thank you. And as you work on the digital equity grants and planning and any of this information or any further information we can provide to be helpful, we're here to be, just want to continue to empower and provide energy and ideas to support you. As Ryan started the call, we see South Carolina as a model for other states to follow. So how we can be helpful to you, we're just a call away, an email, or and happy to perform any research, or as you're looking, as you well know, getting broadband to the house is step one, but then getting people to use it, to train, to skill, to have the low cost devices is the key to the kingdom. And we want to be part of that equation for you.
And Lauren, I think you guys missed the introduction, but we have the state of South Carolina hired Ernst & Young to be both our BEAD planning consultant and our digital equity consultant. So, Tom Rizakis is here today, head of the E&Y infrastructure team. So we're happy to have him working on this stuff, and that'll be a great resource as well. So again, many thanks. We're at our appointed time. Any questions from any of the other BBAC members? Hearing none, I will make a motion that we adjourn. Thank you, everybody. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you again for the opportunity.
Yes, thanks so much.
Absolutely.